I know Freedom Phil here, down by the tracks near the grain silos, in a town that I own a home in. Well, it's not my hometown, but I do own a home in this town. And I get really thinking about the cost of living versus the cost of luxury when I look at my situation, because I did what most people are told to do, but they never do, is put my nose to the grindstone. I assessed my situation and the way life generally is treating me, and I made decisions based on that. I calculated, used mathematics. I'm kind of an ogre of a man, so it wasn't like women were beating down my door, Like, and mind you, when I early 20s, I lived out in the woods in rented a buddy's land, and I made a yurt, and my life was pretty chill. My rent was $100, so I had a job that was well below poverty, if we're being real about it. But I was able to live quite comfortably because I built something that worked for me. Now, if I could do it all over again, what I would have done differently is I would have been a trucker as young as possible, because I've often said you can be retired in this country between the age of 25 to 30 easily. And I can explain this to you. And I'll explain part of the reason I don't care for a lot of the society based on the way taxes are set up, the way people's decisions are basically their irresponsibility is passed on to the responsible. And this has kind of made me into something of, what's the word, a misanthrope, in the sense that like I'm tired of contributing to a society that refuses to be responsible, all while they think they're responsible. Okay, as far as retired between the ages of 25 to 30, here's how you do it. Basically, let's say you get it. You could do the trades, and I often recommend that if you can get the trades while you're in high school, so you're 14, and maybe by 18 you're actually in the trades. Maybe do the GED so you can get out of the quicker you can get out of that damn prison system that we call a public school system, the better. And honestly, if I could drive truck at 14 across this country, I would have been doing it if I had known how much money I could have made. And people are like, well, why aren't you driving truck right now? I took time off to lose weight, have fun, enjoy life. But I'm going to give you a quick example. Go online and look at the S&P 500 calculator. Put in $200,000 in 30 years with $50 contribution. And I think you have something like $3 or $4 million after 30 years. Do you think you could live off of $3 million? I think you could, because I'm a minimalist and I can live off probably, let's see, the carrying cost for the house in town here is about $3,000 a year. That's water bill, taxes, and insurance, and the power bill is almost nothing. And then my drifter style lifestyle is like what 2,000 to 3,000 a year. So, I mean, I'm just being honest. It does not take much to get by. I mean, I could literally just drive harvest and easily cover that, or be a ski bum somewhere and work at a resort and just, I could do that and easily make enough money to spend the rest of the year, enjoying it. Honestly, I tell people my dream job is actually just driving the 4 crappiest months of the year driving truck. And then during the dead of winter, during the 8 months of good season, just drift around in my van, hunt, hike, and fish. So back to how to be retired by the age of 25 is, see, most people, what they do is that they're over sexually charged, and they're like, oh God, I got to have the car, I got to have the lifestyle, got to go to college. Even if it's not college, they have a lifestyle that literally eats it up. They're renting a place that's bigger than what they realistically need. And I'm telling you, as a van dweller or a guy that's lived in a truck, you really don't need all that much as a single individual, even as a couple. Like, hey, ladies, here's a wild thought. Maybe you get a truck driver's license, a CDL too, and then you and your boyfriend or husband or girlfriend, whatever happens to be your persuasion, you both power work for a few years and be debt-free and outright own your property before you're even 30. And you've got your retirements both set up. Now, coming back to that, I'm not dissuading from the trades. I think if you can get them, that's great. But I don't like the idea that you basically have to be someone's bitch for 2 to 4 years or 6 years, depending on where you are. And that's just, to me, that's the trades gatekeeping. Because think how crazy it is that you can do all the work on your own house. You can do the electrician's work, you can do the plumbing, you can do it all. And as long as it passes code, it's good. But if you want to be an official plumber, you have to put in these extra years worth of time. Well, why can't I just go take the test? And if I pass all the tests and I can show, like, give me even a more rigorous test. And if I can pass that more rigorous test, why can't I do that? And it's gatekeeping so other people can benefit from your cheap labor. Well, if trucking, basically, yeah, in the first 6 months, you're not doing that great. You're making enough to get by. If no rent, no bills, live in the truck, Maybe you drive a little rice burner from like the 80s or the 90s or whatever. Just something affordable. Just get something affordable that has cheap insurance. I often recommend a van. But then after you've been in it for 6 months and that would be 70K a year. You're about a year in, you're probably making 80K. You just got a job hop to the companies that are willing to pay you. After 2 years, you can easily be making, probably 100K. Now let's put that in perspective. So what do you really have as bills as a young individual? Okay, so a cheap cell phone, like what, $10 to $15 a month, like Mint Mobile, 5 gigs of data, unlimited talk and text, or I'm with Tello, 1 gig of data for $10 and limited talk and text. Learn to use Wi-Fi whenever you want to do something stupid. Almost everywhere has free Wi-Fi. So then that's like $10 a month, maybe $15 to do your laundry. My auto insurance for my old 80s van is $22 a month. If I'm not really driving much because I'm trucking, maybe $10 to $20 a gas tops. Maybe not even that per month. And basically, I'm just getting at the point that your bills are almost nothing. If you're thin, go shop at the thrift stores to get clothes. Just get that stuff as cheap as possible. Learn where your discount stores are. And stop trying to impress people. Because that's where literally most people completely fuck up their lives. Like, oh, bro, your car looks like shit. Well, whatever. Your car payment makes you look like an idiot. Like people paying $1,000 to $2,000 for a fucking car per month. So they have a less embarrassing vehicle when they drive to work. They drive to the club or the tavern, bro. Like you see these dudes that they don't really have anything going on as far as economics, money, whatnot. And yet they have a jacked up pick 'em up truck or a Harley and a few other things. Like they got a lot of toys, but they don't own any property. They don't have anything to show for their life. Of course, women, they don't really care whether you own that shit or not, just as long as they get to enjoy it for free. And that's where most guys get turned into slaves. And women, I mean, what? Do you want to basically be struggling for the majority of your life, whether it's a comfortable struggling, but you went through this marriage, lost this house, lost this, lost that. Why not just take the easy road? Like, and then once again, drive truck or get into the coding, get into a trade, get into something that can really has a future. And then basically when you have your rent almost nothing, like that's why I say do the drifter or van life thing. And you're making like 100K a year driving a truck. So 10,000 goes to the government. Pick a state that has no state income tax. And then you got what, 10,000 diversion of 100,000 with a 10% match, a lot of these companies. So that's reinvested into your retirement, but that's not even the real retirement. Then you live off about $5,000 a year out of the 80,000 that's left, and you got 75,000 a year to invest. Well, they say, and you can look it up, S&P calculator, the index S&P, if you take $200,000 with $50 contribution, per month over 30 years, you'll have, I think it's $3 to $4 million. Might even be, the 4 million, easily 4 million after 30 years. So what? You're before the age of 25, you can easily pull that off. You can do that in 3 years. Now, so let's just say 4 years because you're the build up. The first year, you're kind of building up, you're putting money away. And then the next 2 years, you've got your retirement completely covered. And you're what? Assuming you can get a decent trucking job and you're 18, you're supposed to be 21 before they let you drive over the road, which I think is criminal because you can die for your country in the military and shoot other people in other countries. And you can sign on to hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt, whether it's student loan or otherwise, but you can't drive a truck across state lines. Like, think about how retarded that is. And I think a lot of it's to hold people back so they'll have kids and they'll get stuck. But then, they say, well, what about life, house, and all this? How many people do you know at the age of 23? Let's just say you started out at 21. But I like I said, as young as possible to get into it. If you can drive farm truck at 14 to get some experience, and then you're driving local milk tankers, or you're driving local freight at 18, do it. Fucking do it. But if 3 years into this, you've already got your retirement figured out, while most people are still in college, accumulating insane amounts of debt. And we'll come to their levels of debt. So then you spend, let's say you want to get some property. If you're a single individual, you get just a nice piece of land out in the county, so you're not dealing with no HOAs and no what do you call it, city style HOAs, have called city councils who make decisions for you. Oh, we've decided we're going to up the price of this and that, and then buy a cheap piece of land somewhere in America, a state that has no state income tax, in like Washington, Nevada, Tennessee, Florida. There's states out there. And then build a bachelor hut on the corner of it. I'm not the first one to come up with this idea. Aaron Clary was the one that pointed it out. Put the bachelor hut, little tiny home on the corner, and then if you decide to have a family, I highly recommend not getting married because of the way the divorce laws and how fickle a lot of people are in this country. Then you can build a house in the center of it. In fact, as an investment standpoint, if you only have the tiny home on the corner, you build your own solar system, which has never been easier. It's like cake mix level easy. And water, you figure something out for that, whether it's just collecting rain from the roof. Make sure your laws allow composting toilets or incinerator toilets. Pick your land very wisely. Down the road, if you wanted to sell that same piece of property, if you had a good building site where there could be a house built, that's a long-term investment. And what's your cost for rent in that situation? Well, I've got a piece of land over in Washington that has beach rights. And when I say beach rights, they plant their own clams, gooey ducks, and oysters on that beach. And we can go get those anytime we want. And then there's a public well, so I don't have to punch a well unless I feel like it. And I can do a composting toilet. $400 for taxes a year. Is it $400 a year? Yeah, $450 I think, and then $200 for HOA. Now I know I just said don't deal with HOAs, but if you saw this place, you'll have a $500,000 home here and then a hippie living in a trailer next door. They're that laid back, and who knows, it could change in the future. But for now, seems good. We're talking just a little over, maybe let's say $60 a month for your rent, and you own that. So buy a house for $300,000 in a little town like that's what when the house is remodeled here, it'll be worth $250,000 to $300,000. Or just wild thought here, just saying, buy a piece of land, build a tiny home for $5,000 to $10,000, and have next to no bills or income. Well, so driving the truck, you have your retirement already figured out by the age of what, 23, 24, from starting at 21. But if you could start younger, the younger the better. Like if you can get into a truck or a trade at 14, driving local farm trucks during this year, and start putting that money towards making you some compound interest, yeah, the younger the better. And then basically, if you do the same thing and then basically get yourself a cheap piece of land, then you've got your home right there. And you're not even, you're like 25 to 30 and you're set for life. Now, let's come over to the average person. What do they do? Bro, my car. Bro, we went to the club. And why do we do this? Because most guys want to impress women, and women are perfectly fine spending money that somebody else brings to them. I mean, I swear to God, women, they're like, I'm not a whore, I'm not a prostitute, but you basically work in barter. He goes out like a John and works real hard to get the money to buy you the things you want, which is no different than prostitution. And then we have this sham we call marriage in this country, where they used to call it men buying a fancy car in their 40s. It's a midlife crisis, man. And yet women have something called the 7-year itch. And I bet it's not even 7 years the average marriage lasts in this country. They say over 50% of marriages end up in divorce. And that doesn't mean that necessarily you're in a happy marriage. There's a lot of times the line is like, well, I'm really sick of this. But like the couple that doesn't talk to each other at all anymore, or he has his job off in the oil field and she has her life there. And the only reason they're still together is because they're not around each other. Like absence makes the heart grow fonder kind of thing. But once they actually have to live together, they realize they really don't like each other. And that's where they're divorced in their 40s or 50s. But then you have the case where you see a lot of people that they get married and they're not really happy. They're not really living. It's not like that. The early phase, the best sex you'll have in a lot of relationships is the early phase. I call it the run in the sunlight sex. That's where your body's just telling you, breathe, fucking breathe. And I often tell a lot of people, look, if you know you don't want kids as a guy, just get a vasectomy. You can always get it reversed if you don't want to have kids. I mean, if you do want to have kids. And you can basically avoid. You don't even have to wear a Jimmy wrap. You can cream fill her as much as you goddamn want, and she doesn't have to take a slew of chemicals that makes her all weird and shit. You know, I'm just saying, like you can have life on easy mode. It's not even hard. And I'm just some random guy. You know, part of the people say, well, why is it you're not working and doing all this? And this comes down to the thing. Everybody else basically buys a lifestyle they can't afford. And then guys like me are expecting, I just saw a robin over there. Hey, get back over here. Hey, come on. Get back over here. Leave that bird alone. Come here. Good boy. Everybody else has a lifestyle that they can't really afford. So when they fail, basically that debt gets just passed on to the entire world. The reason the cars cost as much as they do isn't just the cost of building them. It's because some idiot's willing to pay that, whether it's a pickup truck or, you know, an Escalade or whatever, you know, the furniture, all the crap. When these people can't afford their lives, and a great example of this, not to make this video too long, but it's going to be, is the cost of public school. Well, public school is free. No, it's not. You go online and look up what the cost of public school is in each state. And some states it's as low as $8,000. It's been a few years since I looked it up. And the state I grew up in, it's like, what used to be 13 grand a year. That was pre-pandemic. So it's gone up. 13 grand per student per year for K through 12. Now, if you have 3 kids in that situation, that's $39K a year. And then you have the child tax credit. So what is it, $1,000 to $2,000? Let's just go with $42,000 a year. And then these same people have the nerve to tell me, well, I'll pay for those public schools in my land taxes. So you paid $1,000, maybe $2,000 in land taxes, but you got a benefit of like anywhere from $43,000 to $45,000 this year. Okay, Cletus, when's that math gonna add up? And they'll say, well, my kids are gonna contribute. Well, that's the same argument they made with you. Or how much are you really contributing, hardworking person? And then we got all the people that aren't actually paying any taxes, that literally are parasites on the system. What are they contributing? So then we go and people say, well, I'll contribute to the federal taxes. Yeah, but they immediately spend all of that to pay for all the bills in society. And we're gonna, look, they are spending it, so you do get something. So you can't argue that it's like going and paying the admission to get into a place. You know, yeah, you paid the admission and you got the access to the place. But you're getting a bad deal on it. Like, you know, when they rebuild sidewalks or roads or anything and they're paying an insane amount, they got 3 or 4 guys just holding shovels, not doing anything 90% of the time. And then you got the fat union boss that's sitting there like, yeah, you know, like, yeah, you're getting screwed on the price, but you are getting something. So, you know, like whether it's your military, which, surprise, is actually not as much of the budget as in all the social entitlements in this country. And there's the obvious entitlements, but then there's the ones that people really don't think about. But then you got the military protecting the seas, so we get cheap goods from overseas, so we don't have to pay the full cost of what it would cost to do it here. And then you got the police and the judicial system and the prison system keeping the fuckos in jail, trying to keep some order around here. It's not perfect, but it's better than if you had complete anarchy. I'm being honest about that, because a real society cannot exist in anarchy. I'm sorry, it doesn't happen. I'm a menarchist. I believe minimalistic government. The less is the better. You need enough to get by, but keep it as low as possible. But that's not what most people have. We have an absurdly bloated government. And then you got all the other things, the roads, the things. And yes, you do pay gas taxes. I know as a trucker, we pay an insane amount of gas taxes. There's a doggo again. So you benefit immediately from a lot of your federal taxes, and a small portion of your federal taxes goes towards your public schools as well. You say, well, I'll pay Social Security. But then add up how much someone gets on Social Security in the average lifespan. What is it? Men live about 15 years, women live about 20 or so. And maybe more, maybe less. If you took care of yourself, you might retire in your 60s and live all the way into your 90s. Or, you know, like 80s and 90s, maybe be 100 years old. So if you're getting, let's just say 18 grand a year, and of course, because you're now on the system, don't be surprised how many of these people were staunch conservatives, don't give anybody any benefits, suddenly become, hey, I'm going to get EBT. Fuck it, I paid into the system. So EBT, free cell phone, free this, free that. Oh, and they'll still drive a car and act like, oh, I'm a conservative. But they'll take all those benefits. So the fact is, the majority of people you run into, they're completely inefficient. And one of the greatest crimes, I would say, that comes with the whole system And Social Security it's a safety net that allows people to piss away their prosperity, their youth and their prosperity in your 20s to be enjoyed, getting into credit debt, divorces, and all this crap. And so what ends up happening is that they never actually really save. And this is great for the system. Between a system that tells you that you're not a real man unless you do this or that, and women, do you really want to be that chick in town, where basically you're poor and stuff? So it makes people insecure, and they're willing to sell you instantly something, some form of consumeristic opium, and it never ends. And then if you actually break out of the system like I have, where I live off almost nothing, I mean, comparatively, like what, 3,000 for the house in town here and another 3,000 to be a drifter for the rest of the year. You're mocked and derided because you don't have these things. Look at your vehicle, it's old. Yeah, but I own it. Your vehicle costs literally more than my house payment was, like ridiculously. Like I've seen people have $1,500 car payments, like $1,000 to $1,500. My house payment was only like $442 a month, and I used to pay an extra $1,000 to pay off 2% off the mortgage every month. Look, I get it. What I'm doing isn't cool, but what you're doing is fucking stupid. And like I said, part of the reason I'm a misanthrope is that your stupidity via inflation and increasing taxes gets passed on to people like me. Like when they wanted to rebuild the pipes in this town, it costs more because everybody's inflated the dollar. Because and this is the other thing. Well, all these big talking conservatives, like I'm no socialist, but you big talking conservatives, you got a lot of talk. But when it comes to standing up for things, that's about when most of you nope out. And I'm not talking about taking over the country or any of that bullshit. No, screw that crap. You're afraid of losing your house, your car, your lifestyle, to the point where those things will keep you being a quiet little, oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir. You'll be big talking when it doesn't matter. But, yes, sir. Okay, Mr. Government. Oh, well, I'm a good little simp. Conservative simp. And then you got the left wing, where the crazy train has no brakes. And what I'm getting at with this is that both of you are fucking cancer. And there's such an easier way to live life. It's so easy to be successful in this country. But because, between public school and TV and your parents being complete flops and failures. And if this sounds a lot like Aaron Clarey, it's because he's right. And I'm a living testament to how easy it can be done. And I didn't even do it that fast. I mean, me living in the woods for my 4 years of my early 20s, magical time, $100 a month for rent, had a yurt, got some hippie pussy here and there. It was great. I didn't have kids, thank God. That's back before I got the vasectomy. If I had just done all these things as young as possible, like if I had that determination that I see with immigrants, some guy from India who really did live on the slums of Mumbai, and he gets over here and he's driving a truck and he knows the exact path to success. If I had been doing that from a younger age, I would have been retired between 25 to 30. And now, I retired in my early 40s. 42, I stopped driving truck, and I really don't have to ever go back unless I want to. But it's just this thing, and I'm just so sick of this. And a lot of my rants and rambles have to do with the factor that I guess I just wish people would teach the next generation slightly better. I wish we would break the mold of like I love capitalism, but I hate consumerism. I love capitalism for its options. I hate consumerism for its waste. I wish we'd break that. But the average man's addiction to pussy will make him a slave throughout the course of his life. And the average woman's addiction to dick and attention, by the way, that was Tommy Silverman in my yard, DNA, dick and attention, will make her turn him into a slave and enslave herself. Also, she's better than her friends. And then everybody wanted to be, our comfortable lifestyle. Look at our lawn, our house, and our vehicles. Your dreams are a shopping scheme. That song, I think it was the Clash that said that, was right. So there's a way out. And it's not that hard. It just requires some determination, and you can do it if you really want to. But anyways, I'm going to take the dog over the rest of this walk, go by the library, get some of my tax benefits back by using their Wi-Fi to upload this. And Yeah, it's Freedomville. Y'all have a great day. It's a nice long ramble. Take it easy.